This is Brad Cooper with Purpose Nation, continuing with a bit of a two-part interview, if you will. Hopefully you got to catch our first episode where we talked to Dr. John Lennox about his life and his new movie coming out, Against the Tide. We're really thrilled with this movie. It's rare to see a feature-length film that deals with Christian faith and science, and so really excited about it. And it's probably about Dr. Lennox and his work, but also some of his key ideas in defending the Christian faith. So today, we're continuing on that theme and talking to the host of Against the Tide. And you probably know him from TV shows like Hercules and Andromeda and films like God's Not Dead and Let There Be Light. Actor, producer, director, Kevin Sorbo. Kevin, welcome to the Purpose Nation podcast.
Good to be here. Thanks a lot for having me on. I'm glad you talked to John already because he knows a lot more about this than I do. So it was. I'm just sort of a mere little guide in the movie, but John's the star of this thing. He's incredible.
Well, yeah, we had a great conversation, but you also were a great host because I think, for our audience, our audience is also not necessarily people who are super science savvy, I should say. So it was great to have your point of view and ask some of the questions that you asked. So it's a great film. We're really excited about it. Hope everybody gets out a chance to see it. My wife's a big fan, by the way. She's a bigger fan of Bradley Cooper, though.
Why not?
So, but yeah, the actor, not me.
I know you're talking about.
but hey, if you ever need a co-star and you want Bradley Cooper to be in one of your films, let me know. You know where I am.
I love the outtake they did in Deadpool. I guess he ad-libbed a lot of lines and he wanted me threw my name into it, so I thought that was
so you've already sort of co-starred with Bradley Cooper, but anyway.
No way, yes.
Yeah, if you ever need to co-star, let me know. I would need top billing, of course.
Of course.
The handsome guy in the film would be me. So
not a worry.
We joke a lot on the Purpose Nation podcast. Anyway, first of all, tell me about Against the Tide. I think it just finished up with, or soon finishing up with the theatrical run. It's available, I think, for like groups and churches and things like that to stream it. But how did that come about? How did a Hollywood actor come about and get involved with this film?
Well, I think it was born out of the movie God's Not Dead, which you already mentioned earlier, because the atheist Professor Radisson that I play in that movie, tormenting that poor college student for not writing down God is dead on his paper. He brings up John Lennox's quotes in the movie. So I think that's just sort of where this all led. In fact, I know this is where it led to. Stephen Huff, who financed this thing and produced it, got a hold of me, and we pieced it all together, and we ended up shooting 3 weeks in Oxford together and 2 weeks in Israel. And it was an amazing journey. I think, if anything, this also serves as a wonderful travel documentary. I mean, people go visit Israel and go visit Oxford, England. I mean, people have I had no idea there were that many universities all crunched in together. And it's just, there's a Kodak moment every turn, you go to. But that's really how it really came about. And it was, for me, it was interesting. I look at this documentary as sort of like, I call it apologetics for dummies like me. And this is a place where people can really get those bullet points that you need to defend your faith. And John Lennox is amazing. I sort of play the antagonist in it. I play sort of the guy, in a not a mean way, but I play the guy that maybe the agnostics and atheists might ask questions of this. Say, come on, really, how do you believe this? And John is just incredible. I mean, if you look at his debates, if you go online against Dawkins and Singer and Hitchens, he destroys these guys with being humble, being funny. He's got a Winnie the Pooh voice guy, and he's just such a really cool, classy guy, and you can't help but fall in love with him.
That's great. And so what was your exposure, would you say, to like science and some of these issues prior to the film? How was that for you to come into this, maybe not necessarily being the science guy? I mean, was it intimidating? Did you have questions coming in?
Yeah, it was intimidating. A lot of the questions we obviously set up ahead of time. I wouldn't just go in there cold. But I mean, there's places in there where I just ad-lib something and John would just take over from there. But I just... For me, I've also found it interesting when people that are non-believers, they don't believe in the Bible, they think the Bible's a myth, or they're atheists, agnostics, whatever they may be. They just say, well, science proves God doesn't exist. And I go, well, how? How does it prove? And they just love, it's science, you know, there's never really anything there behind it. This is the type of movie, documentary, I think everybody should watch it, because you don't have to be a believer to watch this. It's very educational. I think people will find it very interesting. And like I said, that the places we go to and the places we get to visit are just, they're breathtaking. And you know, I say when we went to Israel, we just walked in the footsteps of Jesus. And whether you want to believe in God or not, the reality is even atheists that are students of history, they don't deny that Jesus did not exist. They know there was a guy named Jesus that was out there. So that's a good start for the atheist, at least to accept that and go to a place in the world that has so much history. It was pretty cool for me. I went back 6 months later with my family. We took a group of people with us, 50 people, and saw it again during the summertime. We were there in the winter. It was cooler and rainy, but it wasn't still nice. And with John, but the things I got to see that normal tours don't get to see because we're filming this documentary was pretty cool. So I got to go to places that most people don't get to see.
That's neat. That's neat. And yeah, it was beautiful cinematography. That's what I loved about it, and all the different places that you went to. And we asked Dr. Lennox, what don't we know about Kevin Sorbo that he learned? And he said, well, probably all of your fans know all about you already, so not much more to know. But he also said, you know, you're a great Christian guy and kind of standing up and making a stand. So he had lots of good things to say. What might we not know about Dr. Lennox? We see a lot of him in his debates and things like that. And you mentioned a few things. But what's one of the things maybe you learned that you were surprised to learn about him?
I don't know, surprised by it or anything, but there's a couple things. I mean, number one, his sense of humor was great. I didn't know what to expect from an Oxford math professor that holds like 5 doctorates or whatever he has and speaks all these languages. But he's just got such a humble way about him, but a very funny way about him. And I you know, whenever I do any part really with you from Hercules on, I always want to infuse as much humor as we can in there, because to me that's just laughter is the best medicine, and it's just I love having it in there. But when he was a kid, his dad wouldn't get him a TV, but he got him this microscope. Oh no, he got him a radio, an old ham radio, and he learned to speak Russian by talking to people in Russia off that radio. And I thought that was pretty cool. What a way to, you know, his dad was already a step ahead of most dads in today's world, because, you know, our kids just run off and play Xbox, and we all probably watch way too much TV. So I thought that was a pretty neat way to have, to sort of, in a subtle way, force a good education on your child. And that's what his father did with John.
Yeah, I almost wish we could do that today. Take away the iPhones and give some kids some ham radio and learn some foreign languages. Yeah, that's neat as well, and a little bit of that in the movie as well. There were some parallels, I think, though, between you and Dr. Lennox. It seemed to me, you know, he's against the tide in kind of the math and science and philosophy area. You've been, I think, against the tide in Hollywood.
Sure.
When did that start for you? Has it kind of been from the beginning, or, you know, walk me through a little bit kind of your journey as an actor and producer in Hollywood, and when did that start to kick up for you?
Well, you know, if you're a Christian and a conservative in Hollywood, I always joke it's like being a double leper. I mean, really, things are stacked against you in a lot of ways. And yeah, I mean, I became more vocal probably about 10, 11 years ago. It's not that I never hid from it. I mean, I didn't hide the fact that I was conservative in Hollywood. There's a lot of conservatives in Hollywood on both sides of the camera, and they hide from it because it's a death blow to your career. It really is. And when I became more vocal about it, my manager and agent of many years just said, we can't get you through the doors anymore, so we got to let you go. And I thought, this is the industry that screams for tolerance. You know, they tell us to be tolerant of whatever their ideology may be. And yet it's a one-way street. Even freedom of speech, you know, they scream for freedom of speech, and we should be able to say this in movies and that in movies. But if we say something that's different, that's another way to get attacked. And I find it incredibly sad, you know, because I don't harbor that anger that you see out there right now in this angry world we live in. This the divisiveness and divide and hatred we see. And if somebody has a different point of view or a different religion or non-religion, whatever it may be, let's have a discussion about it. I'm fine with that. I'm a live and let live guy that way. And but I get painted out as the really horrible guy within Hollywood because, wow, I have a belief in God and I happen to be a conservative. And I believe that our country was founded on Judeo-Christian values. our Bible. Our laws are coming from the Bible, for crying out loud. So here we got to deal with that. And if it wasn't for independent movies, I wouldn't have a career. So a little over 10 years ago, I think my first faith-based movie was What If, which I've shot over 60 movies in my life, and that's probably in my top 3. I like it better than God's Not Dead. I mean, I can say that without hurting the people that did God's Not Dead, because it's the same company, PureFlix, and it's the same writers that did God's Not Dead. But What If, in my book, is a better movie, but PureFlix just didn't do the best job in promoting. And it's hard to promote small independent movies when Hollywood does $300 million budget movies like Avengers and Pirates of the Caribbean, and then they have $100 million to promote it, because you see it on every football game and every basketball game, the trailers, and we have to compete against that. So how do we get really good movies out there? Because you mentioned my movie that I directed, Let There Be Light. These are good movies, and they have high production value because that's the cameras we got today. They go down in price, obviously, as technology gets easier and easier. So we do really good movies with good storylines and characters that people can relate to, but how do we get it out there without getting the PR money behind it, without getting strong word of mouth? That's what we got to rely on, and it's frustrating that we got to have that fight to put good movies out there, because politics is downstream from culture. Who runs the culture? Hollywood does. Mainstream media does. And look how that's how affecting the younger generations right now. I mean, it's pretty obvious what's going on in our country.
That's right. And you mentioned PureFlix, and I believe you might have been an investor. I know you've been involved with them. I think I just saw the news. Didn't they just get purchased by Sony? Is that encouraging? Is that scary?
I haven't done a movie with those guys since God's Not Dead. You can ask them why. I don't know why. I think God's Not Dead was pretty good, considering that made more money for them than all their movies combined, but they never used me again. Oh, well, sore spot a little bit. But we shot that movie. We shot it 8 years ago. Came out in theaters 6 years ago. So,
well, just in terms of what it means for Christian film, I mean, it seems like, there's different studios that are kind of investing. So it seems like there's a little bit of progress.
Oh, there's no question. There's no question. I think faith-based movies are on the upswing. I hate saying faith-based. I want to say family-friendly movies.
Sure.
Faith-based has a thing about it. I mean, atheism is a faith, right? It's a pretty strong faith not to believe in anything. That's pretty incredible. But no, I read recently, because I know they filed for a nonprofit about a year ago, and now I think that Sony has bought them up. Rich Peluso's company, Sony Affirm. So I don't know what the next step is with those guys. I mean, I've dealt with Rich through the years. I shot a movie with him called Soul Surfer, the Bethany Hamilton story. And, the Kendrick brothers doing a lot of stuff. The Irwin brothers now have moved to Nashville. They've opened a studio there. So there's a lot of stuff going on. My wife and I just kicked off the Sorbo Family Film Studio. So we're hoping to get the ball rolling on that pretty soon as well.
That's great, and you have a couple other projects. So with all of these times, I think the film, shooting at least is slowed down a little bit, and even theatrical releases based on the conditions we're in. But it sounds like you've been keeping busy still. You still have a lot of stuff coming out. What are a couple of projects that you have coming?
Well, I'm very proud. I'm the #1 Christian movie streaming on Amazon right now. It's another documentary called Before the Wrath. It's on the Book of Revelation. I hope people check it out. It's Brent Miller's company. It's doing incredibly well, and like I said, it's still the #1 streaming Christian movie, and it's on the Book of Revelation. Please check it out. It's fascinating. My movie Let There Be Light still streaming on Amazon, doing very well. I've got another movie that I directed called Miracle in East Texas, which will be out next year. It was going to be out this summer, but killed all the movie theaters. So it's a true story set in 1930. We've been at 10 film festivals with it. It's done very, very well. It's won everything from best faith-based movie to best romantic comedy and everything in between. So they can't really pigeonhole it, which I like. John Ratzenberg is in it with me. Lou Gossett Jr., Tyler May, my wife Sam Sorbo is in it. She's amazing in it. Wonderful, wonderful movie that will be out probably around May or June next year. Another movie called One Nation Under God, which will be out next year, that deals with putting that phrase back into our Pledge of Allegiance. I hear rumors they might rush to get out in December, but I don't have all the details yet on that one. And then I have another one called The Mustard Seed, and I think they're changing the title to The Girl Who Believed in Miracles. And I shot that with Mira Sorvino, Peter Coyote, and it's a wonderful story about this little girl who can perform these little miracles. And one starts to happen after the other, and people start waking up to who is this girl and what's going on. So it's a very touching, heartbreaking, inspiring movie. And I just finished 8 episodes of a new half-hour comedy called The Potwins. It's a sitcom that'll be on probably starting in February as well. So if you're a fan of Tim Allen's Last Man Standing, you'll like The Potwins.
It definitely sounds like you've been definitely been busy here. So this hasn't kept you down. And then another one, Faith Under Fire, I think is another one that I heard. Is that this week?
Faith Under Fire. What hurt that one? We got a very minimal on the theaters. I heard it's down to just a handful of theaters. So we're definitely get it up streaming as quick as we can. It's a story. I play a doctor in it. Dean Cain's in it, plays a pastor. But it's really the story is about a fireman who has just lost his wife to cancer, and his daughter is very ill as well. I'm the doctor trying to save her life, and it deals, obviously the faith under fire, sort of a play on the words that he's a fireman, but now his faith is under fire. He's reached a wall of fire, and how's he got to deal with this with his own faith? Because a lot of people say they have faith. But a lot of times you don't really need faith until something happens, and then you realize, wow, okay, now I do really need it. And, it's that testing of our faith, and we all go through it.
That's great. And I think Dean Cain's probably a similar kind of guy, right? Where I think he's a Christian, kind of against the tide with you in Hollywood. And, along with Dr. Lennox, they're standing against the tide, I guess, in the science world. So at Purpose Nation, one of the things we're excited about is just trying to help more Christians become interested in science and pursue careers. Cool. We need more Dr. Lennoxes out there in the world. And as he said in the movie, I think it's the very last line of the movie, or one of his last lines of the movie, he said something about that's what his goal is, to get more Christians not only using it to defend the faith, but to be on the offensive. Why be on the defensive? Why not be on the offensive and go out there and discover cures for diseases and use science and technology, for God's purposes? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I know John is writing a book now based off the movie. His previous book that just came out in the last 2 years or so is another really good bullet point on how to defend your faith. I mean, so they don't go online and look for that book. I mean, like I said, the guy, he's very bright, but I think he dumbs it down for people like me. And I think people will appreciate the fact he makes it sort of like the Cliff Note version of apologetics.
Right. Well, and, so one of the things if we talk about faith-based films or even family films to some extent, for our family, one of the things we enjoy is science fiction, and, things that kind of more cerebral, things like, Interstellar, or you think of, some of those types of films. So in the faith-based space, how do we get more films like that? How do we get, I use Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade as an example, where it's an action, adventure, great, big budget, obviously, movie. Oh, yeah. But it has a lot of faith. If you watch that film, it has a lot of very strong faith-based elements in that. Without having to have a big budget, can we do more of those types of films? Because in the Christian faith-based, you get a lot of biopics, and so it's kind of a little bit of a standard fare. But for me, I'm kind of the action, adventure, sci-fi guy, Andromeda, kind of thing. So, can we do more of those? Because that maybe will get people excited about science and technology.
Yeah, and once again, it comes down to money. I mean, like I do movies in the 3 to 5 million range. That sounds like a lot to people watching this right now. It's not. Come on, guys. You know how big these budgets are in Hollywood, these $300 million movies. So we got to compete against those. And I do movies that have a much better chance of getting their money back, too. I mean, every movie I've been in has made their money back to investors. So our biggest problem is finding that investors. Every time I got a movie funded that I directed or produced and starred in, it was always a God thing. Let There Be Light. Sean Hannity calls me out of the blue, and I've been on Fox before, and he said, hey, I love that movie, God's Not Dead and Soul Server. Do you have something like it? And I said, I do. We pitched him. He wrote a check right there and then. I'm at a speaking event, a conservative Christian speaking event in Palm Springs out in California. We did a Q&A afterwards. Somebody asked about how tough it is to raise money. I'm signing one of my books afterwards, and this guy waits in line, gets up to me. I got this much money. Can you make a movie? We made Miracle in East Texas. That'll be out this summer. So I wish it would happen every year, not every other year, because I've got like amazing scripts, very good family scripts. And once again, how do we raise $3-4 million for it? It's frustrating that I meet very wealthy Christian guys, and they'll spend $9 million on some guy running for office that doesn't get elected. I'm going, I could have made 3 movies with that. They'll be out there forever influencing people in a positive way, not a negative way. So it's just part of the battle we got to go through. And I keep praying that we get these things funded, but it's tough. It's not an easy road, but I've got the good scripts, I'll tell you.
In your travels and talking to Christians in the film business, some of the people you work with in independent film and just Christians in general, I mean, do you find people kind of have this picture of professors that are kind of like your character in God's Not Dead? I mean, and do you think that'll change a little bit? And maybe is that part of the goal, is to say, hey, there are scientists who are very good scientists or mathematicians, but they're all also very strong Christians. So is there a bit of a perception, would you say, in the Christian world, that science and technology is something to be feared, professors who teach it are something to be feared? I mean, what's your perception of that? Is it changing?
Well, I think university professor is something to be feared, because when I do speaking events and I tell a joke. I start by saying a joke. An atheist college professor. Oh wait, I'm sorry, that's redundant. A college professor, because it's out there. I mean, you look at God's Not Dead. I think they showed 25 or 30 court cases of students that end up suing their university because they got failed or kicked out of the university, kicked out of class, just because they had a faith in God. And you see it going on right now. And the last couple generations, I would say the last 25, 30 years of kids going through all the school systems, there's been a brainwash in our public education system. And it's very, very sad. When I was going through school, high school, college, I never had professors saying, don't believe in God, vote this way. I never had that. If I went to my math class, it was math. I went to a business class, it was business. So there's a weird thing going on in our country right now. And it's just sad to see the change in perception of young kids' lives and how they're for lack of a better term, brainwashed into believing the way they believe right now. I think there's an uneducational level, there's the ignorance level, and we're stopped teaching history. We took the Bibles out of the schools back in the 60s, right? But we give Bibles to prisoners, so kind of weird. I don't know. It's something else. What's going on here?
Yeah, it is interesting times. Thankfully, though, we have dozens, if not more, hundreds of folks who are strong Christians who are out there teaching, like Dr. Lennox. We just need more of them, because we need. I mean, the technology that you and I are talking on, right? Were invented by engineers and programmers. Sure. Cures for diseases. You go to the doctor, right, and they're going to give you something, or you're hopefully going to get cured from whatever you have. All kinds of things that we all rely on every day, designed by engineers and scientists and mathematicians, kind of like Dr. Lennox. And if we retreat from it, we're even worse off. So anyway, that's our goal, is to hopefully encourage more Dr. Lennoxes out there to not be afraid. Probably you'd agree not to be afraid of those professors that you played on film, and that are definitely out there. But if that's a calling, we hope that people will still go forward and use Dr. Lennox as a model. So as a somebody in Hollywood, if there's a young person who's thinking about making films, either acting or directing or producing films. You talked a little bit about the industry and where we're at right now, but what would you recommend to them?
As corny as it sounds, just follow your dreams. That's what I did. I'm from a little town of Minnesota, 7,000 people. I want to be an actor since I was 11. I got in my car after college and I just drove out there and said, here I am. I went after it. A lot of doors slammed in my fist, a lot of rejection, a lot of failure, but that's part of life. You learn from failures. I mean, I used to caddy at this private country club through high school and college, and all these guys are wealthy guys. I didn't grow up. My dad was a school teacher. We had 5 kids. I'm the 4th of 5 kids. But my dad always instilled hard work into all of us. And so when I would caddy for these guys, I said, how did you get to where you are? And they all said, well, I failed, Kevin, and then I failed, and I failed some more, then I failed again. And these are the guys that put in those 80 to 100-hour weeks all through their 20s until they got their 30s. That's when success kicked in. A lot of people give up too easily. Stop setting your limitations and don't let someone else set your limitations. It's going to be tough, but go out there, stick to your guns. If you want to be in the business on either side of the camera, it's one of the few industries that people want to be in. I don't see people go, I just sort of fell into acting. It doesn't happen that way. People want to be in this industry more than probably any other business out there. So, just stick with it and stick to your principles. I've turned down roles because I was uncomfortable. I said, I'm not interested in doing that for whatever those personal reasons may have been. But like I said, I've shot over 60 movies. There's probably a dozen I wish I didn't do. You don't know they're all going to be stinkers, but sometimes that's what happens. But you just got to stick with it and not give up.
Again, I'm talking with Kevin Sorbo about his new movie, Against the Tide. It's a great film. It was just in theaters, but if you missed it, don't worry. There's still other opportunities to go see it. You can go to our web page and our blog post page, and you can find out there's a way to see it in a church or something like that. So definitely still ways to see it, and then later on in DVD and streaming and all those other kinds of things.
and also some of the other movies that Kevin mentioned we're going to have on our page. So please, and his projects he has coming up, lots of opportunities to see some great work coming out. So any other filming coming up, or what's going on in terms of production?
I do. I'm about to leave for Oklahoma here. I'm filming the Reagan movie. Dennis Quaid is playing Reagan. I'm playing his pastor. And that probably won't be out till, I guess, next summer or next fall. And then we're talking about that God thing. We just got funded for the next Left Behind movie. So I'll be directing it and doing the lead role in it. I'll take over the role that Nicolas Cage played in the previous one. So we're looking forward to that. We're probably going to film it either in Georgia or Alabama.
Neat. Those are great. And definitely looking forward to that sounds like a great project with the Reagan movie. Excited to see that. Yep. So very good talking to you. Thanks so much. Just wish you the best in all the projects that you're working on, and God bless you for standing against the tide. Again, Dr. Lennox, we talked to in his career and kind of a similar kind of a thing where you're standing firm in your faith, and that's not easy to do in Hollywood.
Well, you know what? I tell people to go to kevinsorbo.net. It's a great place to go see where I'm going. My book is out, True Strength, and my follow-up book, True Faith, which I wrote with my wife, is out there as well. So kevinsorbo.net's a great place to go if you want to get an autographed copy of that or any of the DVDs I got in the family-friendly world. And just staying busy. I just thank God for the fans out there that follow us. And I was going to tell you really quick, I get stopped all the time. It used to be for Hercules and Andromeda. 80% of the time now, people say, please make more movies like Let There Be Light and God's Not Dead. So we're doing the best we can. So thanks.
Check out the newest stuff. And real quick too, you mentioned your wife, and I know she has been in the business as well. I understand maybe some of your kids are as well. Is that right? Or you have any kids following the footsteps?
All three of my kids were in the last movie, Let There Be Light, and then my son, my oldest son, Braden, was in the movie Miracle in East Texas, and he's got a couple little movies he just booked. They're just trying to piece together the timing right now, but he'll be shooting those. So we'll see what happens, movie sets. They kind of fall in love with what I'm doing. So I don't blame them because they're exposed to that. But they're all very talented.
That's great. That's great. My son is also doing some films, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I saw it was interesting in the movie Against the Tide that you met. It seemed like you met Dr. Lennox in the sort of the birthplace of the Inklings with C.S. Lewis and and Tolkien. So what was that like? That must have been neat to see sort of the birthplace of family faith-based films right there.
To go into that bar, to go into that pub and sit there, to realize that they used to hang out there and talk about their writings and talk about God and everything. That was pretty cool too. Yeah.
My son started a group called Filmlings, so it's like a take on Inklings but for film. So he's getting into it too. So hopefully our paths will meet up. And I'm serious about that Bradley Cooper thing. If you ever want me, let me know. Yeah. I can be flexible. I don't have to have top billing. Okay,
fair enough.
Kevin Sorbo, thank you so much for your time. God bless. Thanks for everything you do.
Thank you, sir. Have a great week. Appreciate it.
Likewise. Take care. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for joining the Purpose Nation podcast. For more great interviews, resources, or to make your tax-deductible contribution to support our nonprofit ministry, please visit purposenation.org. This program is copyright Purpose Nation, Inc., a 501c3 nonprofit corporation.